world where allyship and solidarity are essential for achieving gender equality, the concept of women supporting women as allies is crucial. Welcome to the Leading Woman Show, Governance Series, brought to you by our sponsors, the National Endowment for Democracy and Luminate. My name is Abosede Jajagan, and today we will discuss women as allies of women. The complexities of women supporting women exist for various reasons, ranging from personal experiences, unresolved traumas, societal conditioning, and the list goes on. Now, joining us today as guests to discuss the challenges of women supporting women and to spotlight the opportunities and power that lies in women as allies of and to themselves are. We have in the studio today Miss Iretiola Adebayo Olubi. She's the Executive Director of Foundation for Moral Value Representation. In July 2021, she was one of the winners of the ACT Foundation Innovation Challenge. Our next guest is Dr. Nkiru Ballon. She's the founder of the Africa Soft Power Group, which includes the Africa Soft Power Project, ASP, ASP Global, and African Women on Board. And our final guest for today is Ayo Mairo Esse. She is a multi-award-winning broadcaster and a well-known public speaker who has the unique ability to connect with people and help them discover and live up to their best potential. Now, with this lineup of guests, I'm sure you cannot wait to dive into the conversation. So we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
We're talking about a very interesting, and must I add, controversial topic. And we didn't say women supporting women, because that's often the sort of popular notion. But we're talking about women as allies of women. And let me start with you, Ayo. What is your experience of women as allies of women? And what does that even mean to you?
Okay, so thank you very much for having me. This is one of the topics that I absolutely love talking about, and it's very close to my heart because I'm a firm supporter of the notion and belief and narrative and thought that women are allies of women and women support women, despite what might obtain elsewhere. But what I think in terms of women as allies of women is that when it comes to some of the core things that makes one a strong ally: loyalty, friendship, truth, honesty, being able to support. I believe that women do that quite well. And personally, I have enjoyed a rich community of women. In fact, I was speaking to someone just before I came on, and I said that my life or role and career as a broadcaster and host has been what it is today because of the support and championing of women. I have stories about women, even just one recently, who will speak up for me when I'm not there, or say, oh, you're charging too low, go and charge them higher again. So I believe that in the workplace, in my personal life, I have seen women as strong allies. And when you find a woman who is on your case and is for you, you can go to the bank. She would go all the way for you. So I believe that women are very strong allies.
Strong allies. Tracy, I wonder if that's your experience.
Not really. So, women are loyal, true. And a woman on your case, we take things, we go all out when we're dealing with stuff. But I want to look at this perspective from the narrative of how men interact with one another.
Right.
Because we're looking at scaling as women. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 instances, very good.
Right.
But when you're talking about a billion women, we want to be able to scale that even more. So I would always smile at the narrative. If you put 8 men in a room,
Right.
they would live together for 20 years, and you would not know that they don't even like each other, but they would cooperate, they would do everything to help themselves rise. But if you put 8 women in that same room, in 2 weeks, that whole place will be upside down. And you would know the story of each and every one of them, to how their grandfather was a gigolo before he met their grandmother. You know, so we each have individual experiences that are very good. But when you take that and you bring it to a larger scale, I think we need to do more as women.
That's interesting. Nkiru, what would you say? Women as allies of women, has this been your experience? And do you have stories for days like Ayo? Or are you part of the people who we need to, scale for?
So I think first of all, thanks for having me here, and literally great audience. You guys all look amazing. So I think it's complex. It's not black and white. It's all black or white. It's really quite gray. And Ireti, I just found that we went to school together.
Wow.
So we went to a girls' school.
Yeah.
And the concept of women not supporting women is not even relevant when you're a girl, because you have girls everywhere, and we supported. You had enemy camp and you had friend
Of course,
camp.
it was girls.
There was no issue of women supporting women, or all of that. It literally is, you support the people you like, you hate the people you hate. It's such a complex issue.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea of women supporting women or not supporting women is an adult issue. I think. I didn't have the experience of, having horrible girlfriends when I was young.
Right.
You had people that you just didn't get along with, and you were in different camps. But that's the same for boys as well.
Right.
And boys actually fought in the way that girls didn't fight.
True.
So maybe, so I think it's just a little bit more complex than that. I think, adulthood or adulting changes things. You have things that you're competing for. There's this whole idea of like a pie that is, we have one piece of the pie and everybody's trying to grab from that one piece. And then it becomes like women are not supporting women because women are more emotional, or they articulate the issues better than men who are sort of like holding back their anger. So again, I think it's complex. I don't want to leave a room to say, oh, women don't support women. I've had really bad experiences with women not supporting what I've done or what I'm doing, but I've also had experience of men not supporting. True. So I think it's, as I said, complex. So obviously looking forward to navigating.
Yeah. I know that you were on the positive side, but what are some of the challenges, and obstacles that exist that actually prevent women from supporting women or being allies of themselves?
That's a very good question. I'll start from where Dr. Nkiru ended with regards to the fact that I'm trying not to generalize, but in many instances, women can be quite emotional. I think sometimes our emotions get the better of us, whereby men are able to be more logical and objective and, just box things into, are able to box and compartmentalize things.
Right.
For women, we want to deal with it and deal with it now. If I don't like you, I don't want to hide that I don't like you, I won't talk to you. A man can, like you mentioned, not like you and work with you.
Yeah.
No hard feelings and then not have a relationship. But a woman is like, what? I don't want to talk to you. So our emotions, number one, so our biological makeup in some instances. But I don't want to put it down to just that because that's a sweeping statement. But the second thing I would also say is that it's that pie that that you are talking about, that the pool is so small that we fought all our lives, that we feel that we need to continue fighting to keep our position or to be there. It's taken us a lot. And if you look at our history, whereby men have, in terms of the workplace or being able to gain opportunities, have found it relatively easier, especially in this part of the world. Yeah. And so there's that need to be competitive, to feel the need to have to wrestle for things and be on top. And finally, I would say that also culturally, especially in this part of the world, we didn't get things easily. And then even the narrative, and that's why I don't really like the narrative, because I think that it has been said so much that we've begun to believe
it.
Because like you mentioned, men also, I've had horrible bosses who are men, men who are jealous of you, but they are more passive-aggressive than just showing it and telling you. Men are a bit more subtle when it comes to that and are able to keep their emotions in check. A woman will tell you, will let you know, I don't like you and I don't want you to get promoted. So I think that in that way, culturally and the way we've been socialized to believe that this is how women are. The reason why I can be so positive is possibly because of the way that I was groomed growing up. I was raised by a strong mother and very, pro-women mother. I'm surrounded by women growing up, and we worked so well together.
Right.
I went to an all-girls school when I was younger, so perhaps that thinking for me had always been that women are my allies. We're together, so I've always felt very comfortable in the circle and community and friendship of women.
Right.
So for me, I've always seen it that way. So I think we need to start to change the way that we talk about it and the way that we position up, view women so that we begin to see ourselves as allies. The first thing that comes to my mind when I see you is not an opposition, not someone that I need to, someone that I know that women have attitude, etc. I see you as, this is an ally, and I begin to, and I think it changes a lot of things.
Absolutely. Riti, what are some of those challenges and obstacles that make it difficult?
So first
That would make those 8 women not be able to live together for 20 years.
We're territorial first. We're territorial. So like how men are intentional, like she said. Not all men, I mean. So let's one says, oh, she thinks men are, no. So, so we have to be intentional about the space, as in, she's my ally. That's how men are. Like I said, they may not like you, but we want to get this from here to there. What do we need to do to get it from here to there? And then we focus on that need and what needs to be done. Unlike how we would come in and say, oh, I don't like the way her hair is. So the hair becomes an issue. And then you find that all of your thinking is around this hair that is not okay. And we miss out on, we have 1 hour to move this from here to there. So first, women have to be more intentional about collaborating with each other. The second one is, this is a huge pie. Even if it's a small pie, if we all get a little piece of it, then we all get some semblance of satisfaction.
Right.
As against, I want a big cut of this pie, and if I'm not getting a big cut of this pie,
Nobody else can have.
Not just that nobody else can have, the world will come down and we will burn it, So I think intentionality about collaborating with one another, and then understanding that it's in that creating a symbiotic relationship with one another that we can actually advance. So if you look at the political space, and not just in Nigeria, not just in Africa, even the so-called America, we talk, how many women are really active in politics? America is doing over 100, 150 years. How many women are actually out there politically, like we see with the men? So it's not just an African thing. So there must be something that limits us, that is not permitting us to go past those lines, those barriers. And I think also society, societal narrative. I have a difference of opinion in terms of the women of the past and modern women. If you come into our own setting, in Yoruba land, in Igbo land, you find that most of the assets of time past, it was the women who owned the assets, and the women mainly passed down the assets. So the men gave the women stuff to be in custody of, and these women took this stuff and made something of it. The question I always ask in any gathering is, how many women today are their husbands, their significant other, their partner willing to give like that for them to now do that kind of investment? So something happened somewhere. And I think societal narrative is what has caused us to lose out on something that we originally always had.
And that we could all benefit from.
Benefit from, yes.
Curious, so, I mean, what are some of those challenges? There must be challenges. I mean, do women wake up and say, no, women are not my ally? And like you have all said, you went to all girls' schools. So there's something in your mind that said, we're all together, right? And as Nkiru said, boys will fight. If girls are even fighting, maybe I'm not talking to you or something like that. Where did it shift? And you were talking about that adulting phenomenon. And is it that we started carrying baggage that started shaping our lens and then framing our reality?
So maybe it goes to back to the size of the pie. I think, so I'll go back to how we were raised. And I think the whole idea of women as allies has been time immemorial. So maybe the focus has been on what the objective is or for that allyship. So all the women in the room will remember their aunties and their moms having caucuses of, okay, like, are they looking nice? Finding the right husband, all of those things. And there was an allyship there in supporting, making sure you married into the right home. Your aunties will be having caucuses of, whose daughter is that? Whose son is that? All of that. And there was full-blown allyship on that. So it was intentional and it was purposeful. So I think with the modern times came, women in career, women in politics, all of that. And we haven't learned the thinking around how to sort of like move that power we had when it came to those things to this new, reality of modernity, which is women are now voting, women are now in government. Women are now in the workplace and occupying. And so because we've come in and we're the minority, it's like there's a small pie. And, the room has even talked about sharing the pie. Whereas men don't think about sharing the pie. Why should we be sharing any pie? I don't want to share the pie. I think we should focus on growing the pie. And so I want to keep my big slice, right? But if we have only this one slice and we're sharing it, I actually don't want to share it either. But men don't think like that. Or I don't think they do. They think about, okay, there's a small pie. If we grow it into this big thing, then everybody has a bigger portion. Whereas we're thinking there's only one hot man in the room. We're all focusing on that person. And so it's that thing about that whole the competition in the wrong way starts. And I think it starts when we get into that teenage space. And then because we're always the minority in those power rooms, and so your thinking is such a small space for us. So there's many reasons that women don't tend to support women in the sense of, oh, okay, if you're called a feminist, for example, at work, it's actually a bad label. That means the men won't really, when men say, oh, this women talk, all of the things that they say that sort of label you as something. And there's obviously misogyny.
Yes.
Misogyny is not just a man against men don't like women. Sometimes misogyny is also internalized by women ourselves.
Absolutely.
In terms of how we operate as, women or girls. So again, for me, it's a complex issue where, I've been called a feminist by men and women, and it feels like it's a bad thing. It's actually this feminist. Or when they see women talking, it's like, what are you talking about? Women. There's an ad on TV that I actually really dislike, and I think it's DSTV. I don't know which one. It's this really cool video, and at the end, these two women are talking, and then the guy comes and says, "Ha, women. Fair women." So they're gossiping. The women are gossiping. I don't know if you know that ad. It's running all the time, and it's on DSTV, and I'll try and remember it so if you have to reference it. And the idea that women are talking and gossiping, and somebody comes and says, fear them.
Women.
But men are the biggest gossips I know.
Yep.
So it's this whole conversation around like, a war of the sexes, as if there's, we're dealing from a place of poverty, where there's a poverty and scarcity, poverty mentality, which means that we're, not to say there are no jealousies, but it's not a woman thing. I just do not want to leave a room and say women do not support women. I think because all my biggest supporters are women, but also I've had saboteurs who are women.
Of course.
Again, the same issue around, the complexities of things, So what are the reasons? Oh, we don't want to be associated with other women because it becomes a female issue. When you have all women sitting in a room, women don't have power So why do you want to be in the room where there's no power? So you don't want to associate with women as well, as in like, it's like, what are they going to be talking about? Household things, you know? There's all of those things that put us, you know, make us small. And I think we have internalized those, you know, small things about who, you know, we've taken it as if, oh, women, it's a lesser thing, it's inferior. Even us as women operate in that context. So when you even see a qualified woman, it's women who even say, what does she know?
Yep.
You know, but we're not like that, you know, we're not like that growing up. Because growing up, your biggest people were your girls, you know?
Yes.
So again, it's to me, it's complex.
It is a complex issue. And like you said, the intention is not to, you know, promote the narrative. Neither is the intention to say that we should act like the boys, right? Because I think that we just need to find our own way. And hopefully, we'll take a short break. And when we get back, we'll dive into discussing how we can build solidarity and actually move this conversation forward. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. We're still talking about women as allies of women. So Ayo, I want to come to you. How can we build solidarity amongst women to push this gender equality agenda forward? And I'll tell you why it's so important. We've been pushing for bills, right? If you think about the Not Too Young to Run bill, one of the reasons it succeeded is that young people took ownership. If they were young, they said, this is about me. How can we build solidarity amongst women, regardless of what their experiences are, good, bad, ugly, you know, to move this gender equality conversation forward, because it benefits all of us?
Okay, so I'm going to speak from two perspectives. One from my constituency, which is media. I was very touched by what Dr. Nkuri said about the advert, because sometimes, I don't think we do it very often, we underplay the importance of little messaging, nuances by the media, whether it's an ad, whether it's a movie, whether it is just a portrayal, and words that we use. If you're going to change and reconstruct mindsets, the media and entertainment, even the music that we listen to has a big role to play, a big role. If a young, and then the second perspective is to catch them young. So I'll marry both together. Like I mentioned, and like we have all opined, that when we were younger, we didn't really see things like that. We just saw, you know, girls are going to school. But the more we heard, the more we saw, it started to form our thoughts and made us think a certain way. Therefore, if we had been taught right, or we heard right, or we saw right, perhaps we wouldn't think wrong.
Right.
And so one of the big ways to, and that's why I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I love that I see young girls in the audience. They need to begin to hear from an early age that a woman is not your enemy.
Yes.
That the space is big enough for all women. That you don't need to compete to make it. That the first thing that comes to your mind when you see a fellow woman in the same industry as you are is friendship, ally, oh, I've seen my kin. How can we work together?
Right.
And that's why I love women on boards, a number of organizations and groups that have been set up for women, not just as a talk shop, where they actually see, build community and leverage network, their strengths, their networking. I'm a member of groups like that, and it has helped me immensely. So the first thing is catch them young.
Yeah.
Since we've identified that from a young age, it is important to teach our girls right, and for them to continue in that thought that a woman is my friend, a woman is someone I want to help, I want to support. Let that continue. At home, let us not buy into that narrative of a woman, because sometimes the first time you enter an office and you see a woman as your boss, the prejudice is there, the bias is there, so you're like, man, I don't want this kind of person. When men too make bad bosses, it's just like how some people used to pray that their mothers-in-law would be dead before they got married.
But then you are going to be a mother-in-law.
And then and you've never had an experience of a mother-in-law. But it's just the fact that you have heard it, you have seen it in Nollywood movies. It is so. So I believe that that narrative has, and the media has a role to play. We must speak out, we must sponsor shows like this, and we must be very conscious of language that we use. So that thing about, oh, fear women, erase it from your dictionary. It doesn't exist because it's something that's been pushed a number of times and people have begun to believe it. So I think that's a powerful way. Catch them young in schools. When people make negative stereotypes like that, catch it immediately. Oh, that's not true. I don't believe that. And then we begin to shape the minds of our young girls and women to see, yes, that women are allies.
Brilliant. Iriti, what would you add to that? You know, how do we build solidarity?
I'm in total agreement with what you said, with what she said, because I believe that part of the challenge we have is the narrative. I don't think women have always been at this disadvantaged position. So the narrative should have started with, oh, women are such strong support. How can we now begin to give them more opportunity in politics or in whichever space? You know, because when you go back in science, you find that a lot of the scientific breakthrough had women in the background. Political breakthrough had women in the background. Innovative breakthrough had women in the background. Musical breakthroughs, women in the background.
Never at the forefront,
Yes.
always in the back.
Yes, so they've always been there. And many times you find that when you come to look at the history of it, the scaling was because women were there. You know, so we are such astute organizational people. Yeah, so the narrative should have been, women have been doing this much. And at this point, we need to now find a way to give them more platform. But the narrative went to zero, like as if women were not even there at all. So now we just need to prop them up.
Yes. And I think that links to the point that Aya was making.
Yes.
Because until a lot of people saw women king, that story, that particular story, was never told about the Dahomey warriors, that it was a woman king that actually defeated. So women have been erased from history. And it ties really nicely with your point around media. Nkiri, what would you add to that? How do we build solidarity?
So, I mean, I think media is quite essential, as Ayo says. I think just sort of like mindset, the way we think, very important. The idea that, so I don't want to be supported because I'm a woman. And when women say to me, oh, you know, where women support me, I'm thinking, why should I support you? And so, you know, people come and say, oh, I asked her to be a mentor, and she sort of was very dismissive. And as a mentee, what have you done to, get this amazing mentor? She's done all this work. She's suffered through, you know, like a woman is hating you. You think I had experiences where when I moved back to Nigeria and I was at a law firm, there was this really, I thought, horrible woman. She picked on me all the time. But I didn't think she picked on me because I was a woman. I just thought she was just a hater of literally of people. It wasn't because I was a woman. I really thought she was a hater. But I never, as I've grown up, I've realized that there are many reasons why she could have been a hater. Having a bad day, you know, kids are screaming at home. But also, you just come from nowhere and you're just walking into something that she fought so hard to get to. So just many reasons. So we as women have not been understanding of, you know, other women. We haven't done the work to, men actually do the work. And that's a bit of a difference in terms of when men support men. They put in the work in terms of, they do the ballet fully. They go flat on the ground for other men, senior men. Women, we don't do that. We're like, who the hell is she? My hair is, you know, more expensive. My bag is better. You know, and I don't want to leave with that, you know, conversation. But it is true. We don't put in the work as mentees. And so when you then get a horrible female mentee, it's because she's a woman. No. Just we didn't do the work. And I've been guilty of it myself. So I'm speaking from experience where you haven't done the dobale and you think the person should just be there supporting you. I mean, who are you? That's one. And then I think even as women, we're talking about politics, we were just supporting a young lady who was a politician and she's sort of running. And we did strategy around, why are you not winning? And it's because, you know, she didn't go around campaigning like the men were. And so she changed her strategy. She went knocking on everybody's door and making promises as politicians do. In her case, she was actually going to fulfill the promise because we were supporting her.
Yes.
And so she won. But normally we don't do those things because we're not thinking strategically. Meanwhile, you were talking about women being in the, you know, we've been in the background of many things, which means that we are phenomenal strategists. So being in the background is not a problem. I'm in the background of many, many things. Being a kingmaker is actually, I feel, better than being the king, you know, or the queen, or whatever it is. And so understanding the power that we have will also be a cool strategy in terms of, so that we're sort of thinking about how are we going to grow the pie? How are we going to make kings? Because when you make a king, the king then does what you say. And that's that, you know, so I think we're underestimating the power of background work as well as front work, you know what I mean? And so when we're sort of like understanding power and the different degrees and permutations of power, we can then start interpreting what it means to be women and what it means to be allies of women. And because what's in it for me to be your ally, as opposed to, oh, I should support you because you're a woman. Yeah. Sort of that, does that sort of help in terms of
No,
shipping?
absolutely it does. And I think what I find really interesting is, you know, the concept of power that you're bringing into this conversation, because I think similarly, we have not been socialized to have a conversation about power. Yeah. Like power is a dirty word for a woman, similar to what you were saying around feminism as well, right? So it's like, we should be talking about power, you know, so the same way they think we're talking about bag and shoe, you know, by the time we say we're talking about power, they're like, do they want to take over, right? So I really love that you introduced that, because I think we should have more conversations about power. Not that we should then become transactional like the men, but I mean, that example you gave about the lady who just used this change of strategy to go and consult, and to your point, we know that as a woman, she would most likely keep her promises. So, Ayo, what I want us to talk about now is there is often the burden on the women who have navigated and made it to leadership to then promote and bring every other woman along for the ride. And they are the ones who often get criticized, because remember, they're the ones who make it to the forefront, right? And we want them to be the ones who brings everybody along. So how can we encourage women in leadership to promote other women to get into leadership? And I guess the question is, at what cost do they need to do that?
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad you asked that question, because I beg to differ a little with regards to, don't help me because I'm a woman. Help me because I'm a woman. Until we bridge that gap, I am all for affirmative action and sometimes tokenism. I've gotten into some rooms and some places because of tokenism.
Yes.
But the onus was on me to prove myself.
So do something with that.
Because sometimes, because of the way the system is set up, until you are forced to make room for a woman, the door will always be closed. And so when you then make room for a woman, I won't sit on that board or sit in that space as a woman. I sit to deliver. So that, number one, by my actions, I was saying that earlier, when I'm put in rooms like that, I feel a sense of responsibility that I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm doing this so that other women will then have the opportunity to be given a chance that, okay, she did it not just because she's a woman. There was a point when we were asking in Nigeria that the Minister of Finance should always be a woman. Because of what Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala did. She was, I believe, the first finance minister. And subsequently, we had female ministers of finance because she did it so well. I'm saying that because it might have just looked good. I don't know what, I mean, it would be insulting to her to say that because she came with her credentials, her experience. Yes. However, we live in such a patriarchal society that a chance had to be taken on her, and she had, unfortunately, extra pressure and eyes on her. She could not fail. She could not afford to fail. Because when a woman in power fails, she's judged doubly than a man who has been failing all along. Oh, we said it, women cannot, you know, and we've seen that, you know, oh, we said women say you're this, one woman fails, and it is a dent on all women in Nigeria or women who have the opportunities. So, strategy, because men have strategy too. I enter, it opens more doors for what? More women. then it is time for you to pick women who are capable, not because you just know. So that's where the difference is.
Yeah.
Not because I want to open the door for women. Mentorship, I will mentor women more because you're a woman and because you have something to give. Because I know that for many years, we've not been given the opportunities that we deserve. And so it's just like when, we do a lot here in Nigeria, fortunately or unfortunately. When your townsman enters a place, just know that we're all getting there. It is you representing all of us. But then you put us on the map. You put us on the stage. And it happens in the world, to be honest. Even Nigerian, I'm sure there are more Nigerians working at WTO now, World Trade Organization. I'm not saying but because you know the capacity of people. You bring in your own team because you worked with them. So it opens doors, and it should open doors for more women. And for affirmative action, the president promised us 35%. I still hold into account every time. Give us the 35%. That 35% will then grow to 50%.
Yeah.
Not because you need to put women, not because you have to put women there, because
women are 50% of the country's population.
and besides, we are capable.
Absolutely.
We've just not been given the opportunity.
Thank you. Iriti, what would you say about women in leadership promoting other women to get into leadership?
It's a big burden. That's the honest truth. It's a big burden because the woman who is out there already has put in the work. I want to look at affirmative action with the result of quota system in Nigeria. Quota system hasn't done us good. What it's done is build mediocrity. Because the minute you remove getting people to invest in improving on themselves, what you have is mediocrity. People must be encouraged to improve on themselves.
But they're genuine barriers, Joe, because I'm definitely with Ayo on, and I agree that quotas are not a silver bullet, but I'm definitely with, let the women just go inside. Improving themselves, they're genuine barriers to that. So that's why we don't have as many women who have leadership skills, because growing up, we were not supposed to be leaders in the first place. So how were we supposed to get those skills? Or we have the skills, but we have not been given a chance to display the skills. So I just wanted to make the point that there are genuine barriers why there are not a lot of us who are prepared for leadership.
I want to differ just a little bit.
Absolutely.
So what is leadership really? Leadership is not the person you see. Leadership is organization, strategy, and future thinking. That's leadership.
What women do at home.
Not just at home.
No, what I mean by that is they have the skills.
So we already have that skill.
Exactly.
So if even the man who is out there built the skill in the background, so we have those skills. Thing is, perhaps the platform isn't as it should be. Now, is the platform available? Yes, 35%. In Rwanda, I think that's one place where they've pushed it.
Level. Yeah.
I think Congo, is it Southern Sudan, where you have a lot of women now in politics. When you come to Nigeria, okay, how are women taking advantage of that opportunity? For people who are in the not-for-profit space, okay, you have a program where you want to bring in young ladies, you want to bring in women. You practically beg them. You beg them to come, and then you have to handhold them. Unlike when you're dealing with the boys. One of the things that I'm a bit worried about is creating that quota system narrative where you become entitled. I want us to encourage the narrative that this is open for us as women, but earn it also. So, yes, let's get in the women, but let the women do the work. Let them understand, like how you grew, Ayo. It wasn't that you were given the opportunity and you just assumed that because the opportunity has come, we want women in here. We want women on the board. And then you come in there and then all you are is a woman on the board. You put in the work. You put in the learning that needs to be done. You put in the strategy that needs to make a difference. which is what we are in the background. So that thing we are in the background, I want us to have a constant narrative where we bring it to the fore. So for me, I've always seen myself and every other woman as an enhancer. Like I was telling Ola downstairs, if you take a room filled with men, that room is dirty and at best very, very uninteresting. But put a cock-eyed, square-legged woman in there. She may be the ugliest woman. Just put her in the midst of those men. The dynamics of the room changes. We are enhancers. One of the things that feminism and all these other narrative has done, it's removed from who we originally are. We're enhancers. Any place where we're in, whether it's an organization, whether we're at the forefront, whether we're in the background, we are enhancers. We get in there and we change the space. Now, how do we now begin to take that thing that we naturally are and bring it to the fore and scale it the way men have done in their own space? I think that should be what we're more
pushing for.
Yes, more focused on than anything else.
Kira, what would you add to that? You're a woman leader. Are you promoting other women to get into leadership?
So my team is actually a majority women, so that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
But I think we're having I wanted to have this is to my mind, it's a nuanced conversation. So in terms of what Ayomase was saying around support me because I'm a woman, I'm referring only to the concept of women as allies, not the quota system. That's a whole different conversation. I'm not referring to men supporting women. I'm referring to a woman coming to me and saying, support me
only for the reason
because you're a woman. I will not support you because you're a woman. That's just, I'm sorry. And so when the strategy for a woman is to go to other women and say, support me because I'm a woman, I think is the wrong strategy. Because this conversation is about women as allies. Now, when we're talking about institutional support for women, that's completely different, because we have, as you said, institutional barriers, customary barriers, traditional barriers that have kept women at the very bottom of many things. And this was not naturally our culture. I think this was inherited from religion, from all of that stuff, whether it's Islam or whether it's Christianity, that subjugated women in one form or the other. And so we've come over the past, since we had the religion, to subjugate women. Now that's a conversation that bring all the women, the illiterate should be in the room, Seth. Because when you have a woman in the room, even the worst woman, at least you will know that women have periods.
Yes.
And so we need a toilet closed by clean toilets.
Yes.
We need those things. So even if she's all about herself,
she will do for herself.
If she's doing for herself,
she will do for us.
Impact all of us.
Absolutely.
So please, and then when you think about boardrooms, I always say, what's this about qualified women? The men there too are not qualified. So let us all be stupid together in the room. Yes. One way, one day, we will all equalize. We don't actually, from my perspective, want to be better than men. I do not. I have no interest in being a better person than any man. I don't even want to be equal. I literally just want to be there too. If we're doing it together, let us just be moving together, we together. That's the way I see it. But when it comes to women supporting women, as a woman, I do not understand the conversation around support me because I'm a woman. I'm like, why? What have you done for me lately? Ooh, yeah, you know what I mean? What really, as a woman, and I'm speaking because there are young people in the room, what have you put in to get me as your mentor? What have I put in to get somebody else as an ally? Like, what have I done the work in the way guys do the work? Because this is a conversation around women as allies. That's why I didn't want to move into quota system and all of that, because that's a completely different conversation. In that case, I would be like, also let's enter, you know what I mean? But on this one, I think there has to be a lot of strategy around how women interact with other women. And I just wanted to,
I appreciate that. And then the value creation piece of it, which is that, yes, I'm a woman, but what value am I bringing to my fellow woman, that should sort of inspire her to be an ally of mine.
Yeah, the loyalty that you talked about. Yes. Someone talked about loyalty, the building, the supporting, the nurturing, the sort of saying, what book do you like? The going somewhere and finding oranges and saying, I'm bringing oranges to you. All of the things that guys actually do, which I don't know where we lost on that, where we don't do that, or we haven't naturally done that. And so that's, I think, where in terms of media, and even the whole idea of power, I'm talking about, women are enhancers. And yeah, but I don't want to enhance anybody. Like really, I don't want to. But I just think that there's nothing wrong with strategy in the background, because if media starts showing power, whether in the back or the front, we will start navigating power differently. Absolutely. Because guess what? The power that women as voters have, and that's one of the critical things.
Very powerful.
It is so powerful that we can change votes. I mean, think about Trump. It's bloody women that elected him.
And we can change who leads
we can change who. So that power is what I'm interested in.
Yes.
And we'll realize that power when we understand our power. You know what I mean? So that's how I'm navigating that whole idea of women as, once women understand that by empowering other women and we're aligning together to maybe take somebody down or build somebody up, because there's also power in taking, like the allyship is like, let's conquer or whatever it is. Together. And then we shall thrive, So that's how I'm seeing it.
I mean, this conversation has been enriching. I think that we have touched all the dimensions of it. I think that, our intention is not to say this is a formula, but I think that people are going to go away knowing that women can indeed be allies of women, that women can build power, right, to go together, and that actually we should have solidarity with one another. So thank you so much. It has been such an interesting conversation today. We're going to go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll go into our gaming segment called Misrepresented. And now it's time for Misrepresented, our gaming segment. Today, we will dive into history to reminisce on historic female leaders. Our participants will give us answers to our who was questions. Representing Team A and B are Joy and Jeremiah. Give them a round of applause. Now, if we're ready to play, question 1. Who was the first female chairman of a Nigerian bank? I have options for you. 1, Fumilayo Ransom Kuti. 2, Ibukun Adenike Awoshika. 3, Ibukun Abiodun Awoshika. Team A, what's your answer?
I'll go with B, Ibukun Abiodun Awoshika.
B. Yes. Is Ibukun Adenike Awoshika.
C. Abiodun Adenike.
Ibukun Adeodun Adenika.
Abiodun Awoshika. Give them a round of applause. This is the correct answer. Now, question 2. Who is the captain of Nigeria's Super Falcons? What would be your answer?
I'll go with option B.
B. Asisat Oshuala. And you?
Option B.
B. The correct answer is Onome AB. So none of you got it right. But all the same, let's give them a wonderful round of applause for playing today. On this note, I would like to thank our distinguished guests for joining us today. Thank you to Ms. Iretiola Adebayo Olubi, Dr. Nkiru Balonwu, and Ms. Ayo Mairo Esse. We appreciate you for being part of today's episode. And of course, to our live audience, you have been simply amazing. To our viewers watching today's episode, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us across all social media platforms at Will and Global, like, share, and leave us a comment. And of course, remember that women's leadership can change everything, everywhere. See you next week.